All right, friends, it's T-Man, and I'm back with a brand new video that JasonBlaha just came out for reviewing. Yes, man. The gym lifting slave himself, JasonBlaha, Strength to Fitness, Baloney Fitness. All right, man. Let's see what Jason has to say. JasonBlaha says why our goal for lifting should be to increase muscle mass. Well, that's usually the reason why people are going to the gym. To get stronger, isn't it? To build muscle to get stronger. Or is it to get better at lifting weights? I don't know. Let's see. But sometimes it happens unconsciously. They can't build muscle, so they start lifting heavier. All right. They're all based on adaptations.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would sit down and do another video for you guys and gals. Let me get a sip of my water first. A beautiful radio voice going, and let's talk about this. All right. So lifting weights, and it's something that people need to understand when it comes to lifting. The reason that we lift weights is to gain muscle mass. And we need to be very, very clear on that. And I don't care.
When he says muscle mass, he means the girth of the muscle. Look, the amount of muscle fibers that are established, they're established when at birth, when you're in your mom. That's when the amount of muscle fibers are established in you as a person. Individually, I can't tell you how many muscle fibers you have according to other people. Not everyone has the same amount of muscle fibers. See what I mean? Not everyone has the same amount. And the majority of your lifespan, when you do come out of your mom, whatever, you're growing up, it's usually in girth because they're multinucleated. These fibers are multinucleated, and the majority of size that you get now in these muscle fibers is in girth. So, yeah, but you can grow. You can get. There's three ways that you could get muscle. There's three ways. You can get more muscle fibers. They can elongate, or they grow in girth. So that's the three ways. More muscle fibers. You can get an increase in muscle fibers. You can get them to become longer. All right. I'll explain this in a second. And girth. The girth part is difficult. It's based usually on pushing that domain. All right. It reaches an MND size limit, whatever you want to call it. This girth reaches an MND size limit, or the cell has a nuclear limit, okay? How big that cell could get. The girth in the cells. In each cell, they can only get so big. They're already big. They're already big in your body. You as a person, the girth is already pretty big, but the girth is really controlled. Well, pretty much all of it's controlled by the secretion of myostatin. That's right. But here's the thing. If the satellite cell is activated through micro injuries, through injuries, you injure the muscle fibers, it's activated. That is the only way to stop myostatin, okay, from secreting. In other words, they can't occupy the same space. It cannot occupy the same space as the satellite cell when it's activated, myostatin. So that is your chance to actually increase girth, okay? And possibly if you caused enough micro injuries to the muscle fiber, you can cause an elongation and you can create more muscle fibers out of that damage that you created. Now, it depends on the damage. I can't tell you. I don't know how much damage you caused to the myofibrillar. Look, I use a very sophisticated way of causing damage to the myofibrillar. I resensitize muscles, I come back, I allow them to repair and remodel. So I do a full upper body day, and then I do my legs the next day. I'm not going to do my whole upper body in one day, okay? It's impossible. I'd be in there for over 6 hours. That's ridiculous. So the majority of the time that I'm in there, I usually, in my young days, I could do it in 2.5 hours, a full body workout, 2.5 hours. I work through it really quick. My set repetition range is usually 5 times 10. 5 times 10, and I work every muscle group as much as I can. That, for example, if I was doing my chest first, I would do upper 5 times 10, flat bench 5 times 10, and decline 5 times 10. And then I may do some flies, some cable flies 5 times 10 or whatever, or 5 times 12, depends. All right. Okay. Now I go and do my back. Well, I'll do pull downs from behind the neck 5 times. Let's just say it's usually 5 times 12, but 5 times 10. Then from the front, pull downs, lat pull downs from the front now, another 5 times 10, and then maybe close grip 5 times 10. That's a lot for a lot of people. Now we're going to go do some, I don't know, landmine rows, some landmine rows. Close grip, I don't know, maybe barbell rows, 5 times 10, reverse 5 times 10. Some, let's see, I don't know, shoulder shrugs for the lats 5 times 10, cable shrugs 5 times 10 for the traps. Sorry, the traps. I don't know, maybe some partial deadlifts for lower back 5 times 10. Let's see what else. One arm rows, dumbbells. And I may even do some seated cable rows. I might even add them in there, another 5 times 10. Close grip and wide grip. Okay, so that's done. Now we move on to the shoulders. So behind the neck, in the front, presses, I don't know, laterals, side laterals, maybe flies. Just a whole bunch of stuff for the shoulders, okay? Arms, I'm going to do a lot, man. I'm going to do a lot. My arms and my forearms are going to do a lot of different sets, variations, and stuff because I want to do a lot. It's an overworking, let's just put it this way. It's an overworking of an unsensitized muscle, resensitized muscle. Let's put it that way. I don't want to say untrained. It is kind of, it's not really untrained. Their muscles are still trained. Even if you're coming back once a week after a repair and a remodeling. Muscles take 7 days to repair and remodel. Why is that? Well, because in this instant, if you're doing a full body workout, there's a lot of damage there. It's an overworking of an untrained muscle. That's a lot of damage you're doing. Everything keeps getting damaged. Your chest is constantly getting damaged. If you're doing your shoulders, and your back and everything. And if you did your chest, your back got worked already. So it's an overworking of an untrained muscle. Okay, dude? And so in that instant, there's more damage. That damage will cause new fibers to grow. They'll get elongated in a repair and a remodeling, and the girth will grow, providing you go down to the buffet and eat for 3 hours and then keep eating all day, be in an anabolic growth state the entire week. So you can push that domain and you can get more muscle fibers, increase in length, and increase in girth. That's how you do it. It's a more sophisticated way of building your body. It's going to be, maybe for some people it's harder. I never found it hard, but there's a lot of weak people out there. What do you expect? Okay, if you do bro splits, you're never going to get that amount of damage. There's a possibility you may get some damage. There may be a repair and a remodeling, but you won't get any more fibers. And if you don't eat enough, you can't push the girth, the domain. Okay, let's say people are just working out in the gym. You know, they're getting this metabolic stress. They're adapted at this point. The only way to push the girth in the muscle fiber, because they have a nuclear domain, is through food. You have to be in an anabolic growth state. So you have to focus more on eating than you are lifting in the gym. And even if you are adapted, to try to push the girth in that muscle fiber, to try to get the progenitor cell to donate its nuclei to support further muscle growth. But again, at that point, it won't do it unless there's some sort of damage going on there. I can't tell you what kind of damage. Is that hypoxia? Will it do it if there's just hypoxia damage? I don't know. It's hard to say. You can experiment with it. I've been there and I've done a lot of stuff already. Experimented how muscles grow. I've done all the bro splits, this, that. I've done everything. You name it. Every kind of lifting stuff, pyramiding, this, drop sets. Man, I tried everything. So I already know what's going to cause muscles to grow in the most quickest, most efficient way. And I am aware about myostatin. Here's the thing. Muscles are postmitotic. They do not split. The only way to create more of them is the fusion of myoblasts. And the only way you can get myoblasts if they differentiate from the satellite cell. So the satellite cell has to be activated. If it's not activated, then they won't proliferate and then differentiate into myoblasts and then fuse to create more myotubes. Impossible. So how do you activate the satellite cell? Well, it does get activated. Sometimes it gets activated through hypoxia. You're in the gym. It's a hypoxic event. Your muscles may be adapted at this point. They went through a repair and remodeling originally. It's protected now by the repeated bout effect phenomena. There's no more damage. But this is a different type of damage, hypoxia. Okay, let's say the satellite cell does activate through hypoxia. It just proliferates, but it doesn't differentiate. Okay, it's out there doing something. I don't know. All right, let's say you eat a shitload of food. You just keep eating and eating. Can you push the girth of that muscle fiber? It's a possibility you could push the girth, but you got to get the satellite cell to donate its nuclei to that domain to push that girth. Get it? You understand me? Without these nuclei, they can't get bigger. It's impossible. That is the problem. Bodybuilding is really complex, man. I think people don't understand how complex it is, the complexity of it. So yeah, you can get minute damage where there's a repair and a remodeling. You can get minute damage where the body just doesn't do anything. It won't even bother. There's nothing going on there. Then you get a repair and a remodeling, depending on the damage. And then the massive damage will give you repair and remodeling and more muscle fibers. And there can only be an increase in girth if you're in an anabolic growth state. That's why I told people if you're doing that type of workout, then you need to eat a lot. You understand me? You need to eat for hours and hours and keep eating all day. All right, let's hear what else he has to say. I'm sorry about that.
What your goals are. People are like, well, I lift weights because I want to burn more calories to lose more fat. I lift weights a ton of. I lift weights to be better at my sport. I lift weights to have this 1 rep max. Okay, all of that is fine, but what pathway does all that occur through? It occurs through hypertrophy. It occurs through gaining muscle tissue, thickening your muscle.
It goes through something called hyperplasia, hypertrophy. So there you go. So yeah, now when I think about look, again, they're multinucleated. So the progenitor cell donating its nuclei is based on hyperplasia. Like I said, in hypoxia, will it do that just because it's activated because that type of damage through hypoxia? I can't tell you. I don't know, man. See, I don't know. If you start eating in your anabolic growth state, okay, and you're pushing this domain, the girth of the muscle fiber, will it donate its nuclei just because you're eating so much and you're lifting and there's hypoxia? I don't know. I can't tell you. Me personally, I've not found any growth there doing that. I'm not even totally sure exactly because I don't know how long I never really went that route. I didn't just go when I was going to eat. Science says that muscles will grow if you eat. If protein synthesis exceeds this breakdown, it should grow. It should grow. But isn't there a limit? There's a limit, right? Okay, it needs more cells, more nuclei to synthesize protein to further that domain, to further muscle growth. See what I mean? You could experiment with it. I'm not going to do that. You could experiment doing that just by being in anabolic growth state and lifting it in an adapted state, a goofy state, lifting your weights in the gym and find out and see if that domain can be pushed. See what I mean? But again, here's the problem with that. Myonuclei can be lost. You can gain them, but they can also be lost. That's the problem. I'm more interested in gaining more muscle fibers and gaining, look, I'm more interested in gaining fibers through a repair and a remodeling so they get longer, and I'm interested in creating more myofibrillars. You understand me? 2 in 1, because they're permanent. They stick around. And they themselves are nucleated, and so they have to size up. They have to size up to your body's natural size. See what I mean? So they're a much more permanent way of building muscles. Now, if you're just looking to try to increase girth, maybe you get these nuclei, let's just say, to keep increasing only the girth of the muscle fibers while you're hypering and atrophying. That's the problem with that constantly. Most people never eat in an anabolic growth state in the gym anyway. And so they come in there, they're adapted, they're lifting weights, right? Man, it's just protein turnover. They're breaking down proteins and then putting them back again. They're never exceeding that limit because protein synthesis needs to exceed breakdown in order to see the girth be pushed. So they're never really pushing it. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Can you force that domain by protein synthesis exceeds this breakdown, you being in an anabolic growth state? It's a possibility. You could try that, yeah.
Fibers. Let me explain. Anytime someone says, hey, I want to tone up, do they not understand?
It's time to take control of your line worker training.
Do they not understand what that means? They're saying in their mind, okay, this person is toned. I'm like, that person has 20 pounds of muscle on you. We're like, what? A lot of times, especially women, that throws them off. I'm like, that woman has 20 pounds more muscle than you do. So if you want to tone up, you're going to have to gain 20 pounds.
She has 20 pounds of what type of muscle did she gain? See what I mean? He's like, she's got 20 pounds of muscle. What type is it? I mean, remember, there's more than one type of hypertrophy. There's myofibular and then there's sarcoplasmic. You understand what I'm trying to explain to you? There's an artificial type of muscle growth, sarcoplasmic. It's based on glycogen loading. It's ATP. It's an energy source. You can load a lot of it in your muscle. A shitload, a ton load can load in there, 20 pounds of it. So does that mean you're carrying 20 pounds of muscle? Well, 20 pounds of muscle of what? Sarcoplasmic. Isn't 20 pounds of muscle myofibular? You understand me?
Pounds of muscle, but then they're like, well, she doesn't weigh that much. I'm like, yeah, because toning up usually means losing fat and gaining muscle. Okay? That is how you get toned. That's how you do it. You know, but they see that and they're thinking, but
Yeah, that's called conditioning, Blaha. You want to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Yeah, that's not so easy. Depends on what you're doing. What type of muscle are you trying to gain? See, that's the problem. Muscles are postmitotic. They don't not split. So most likely he's talking about girth in the muscle fiber. Okay. But it can be used as energy, so you're going to flatten out.
she doesn't look like a bodybuilder. Yeah, because she didn't take it to the extreme. She gained 20 pounds of muscle, not 50 pounds of muscle. You understand the difference? And gaining 50
You mean like all the people out there, newbie gains? All their newbie gains, they don't look like bodybuilders. They just look like they got a little bit of muscle, but not a lot of muscle.
pounds of muscle is probably in that case going to require magical supplements. And you guys know exactly what I mean by magic.
There you go. See, he's admitting you've reached an MND size limit. He doesn't know how to get over it. So you're going to need magical supplements like steroids to build any kind of muscle. This is just stupid, but whatever. They don't build muscles.
Supplements. We're not talking the stuff you buy at the store. All right? That's what's required. So, but they'll see that and get confused, and then they're not realizing she's just really.
Okay. Okay, it is artificial muscle growth. Let's say you take a steroid and it artificially induces some protein synthesis. So you're a lazy eater. You don't want to eat. So you just eat whatever you're eating and you took a steroid now. It trying to preserve your body, thinking you're going through a famine. It's going to start to stimulate protein, and the contractile proteins are going to build up. Let's say they're going to build up in these cells. Now you're able to push through this domain by getting the girth to become bigger because you're a lazy eater. You don't want to do it naturally, easy eating. You want to take a steroid. This is where I keep trying to explain to people that you atrophy, you hyper and you atrophy. Muscles can hyper and atrophy because the majority of people are really trying to just gain mass on the myofibular. They're trying to get the myofibular to mass up to the girth of it, to get bigger, a bigger girth on the muscle fiber. Okay, let's just say, and you push it. Okay, like I said before, there's some hypoxia, whatever. You push it with the steroid. Now the steroid, okay, now your body, your muscle has to donate these nuclei to support further muscle growth in girth. In girth. See what I mean? Okay, so it does that. Now, what happens when these people go off their steroids? They're not eating anymore. They don't eat anymore. They don't eat as much as they did as usual. To what? To support that girth, the contractile proteins in there. Plus, they're working out in the gym, and so you're breaking down proteins now. See what I mean? That's what happens. And the steroids stop working because they become adapted to these steroids. They don't work anymore. They become discouraged, a lot of people, because they can't afford to keep buying more and more and more and take higher and higher dosages all the time. So it never really truly works out for anyone. So yeah, like I said, you could do it by being in an anabolic growth state. You can push that domain. There's some hypoxia, maybe, you work out. And you can push it by eating the girth of the muscle fiber. That's why I say I laugh at people. They're hypering and atrophying. Me personally, I prefer to build more myofibers, myofibrillars, through muscle damage. It's more superior. The eccentric movement is associated with muscle damage, and it's associated with a whole bunch of other stuff. More strength, more this, more that, more just a whole bunch of stuff. But if you're just trying to get the girth to become bigger on the myofibrillar, you've never built more myofibers. And when you get older, you're going to lose these satellite cells with time. They go down, they diminish. And so will you. Your mass is going to go away. But the amount of myofibers that you actually grew, they're permanent. They're not going to go away. They're never going to go away. That's why people always ask me, how do you look like a bodybuilder and you don't work out? Because I don't have to. Because I built more muscle fibers. So I've got more of my natural strength has increased. I'm not talking about practiced strength and lifting a heavy weight in a gym. I'm talking without lifting weights, without doing anything. I've got more natural strength because I'm 250 pounds. I'm not 190 pounds anymore like I was when I was a kid. I'm 250 pounds. And in my younger days, I was 285. Being younger and stronger, having higher hormone levels and satellite cells and a better repair mechanism than I do now in my 50s. So there you go. So there's a big difference in age and when you're, being older, this, that, and what you're doing, what you're trying to build there is complex.
Really lean. And that's a big factor too. So usually when people see the women who they think are crazy jacked, the bodybuilders, because they've dieted down really to a very low body.
So here's the thing. Do you really need to lift a heavy weight to increase the girth in the muscle fiber? Do you need to lift a heavy weight to increase the girth? No, not really. What do you need to do to increase that girth in the muscle fiber? You need to be in an anabolic growth state. And what does that require? Eating a hell of a lot of food. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. If you could go every single day to the buffet, if you could wake up in the morning and eat shitloads of food like crazy, your breakfast and everything, and then go to the buffet in the afternoon and eat for 4 hours, and then go home and keep eating all day, I can guarantee you, you will push that domain and your muscles are going to grow. They're going to grow like super massively big. But if you can't eat or can't afford to eat like that or do that, then it'll never happen. But here's the problem. After a while, if you do push that domain by forcing it just by eating more girth, just gaining more girth, but no muscle fibers or anything like that, or repairing or remodeling or more muscle fibers, fusion of myoblasts to create more myotubes, then guess what? When you don't eat over time, you become lazy and whatever, you'll start to shrink. And guess what? Your body will remove these myonuclei because they don't see them as viable. They don't need them anymore. See what I mean? So if you can't support, let's say if you can't eat a certain amount of food to support that domain, well, then it'll go away. See what I mean? It's not, if you don't use it, you lose it. In other words, if you don't keep eating, you'll lose it. Yeah. It's not so much as I don't use it, I'll lose it. It's not if you use it, you will lose it. It's if you don't eat, you're going to lose it. Get it? If you can't support that domain with protein synthesis exceeding breakdown, then it will not be supported. And remember, muscles are constantly building up and breaking down. So the girth of the muscle fiber, the contractile proteins are building up and breaking down constantly. So how can you support something skating uphill? It's crazy.
fat. Okay. Now, what would happen if you were to just lose weight? People say, well, I'm doing it to lose fat. But if you just lose fat and you don't gain any muscle, you don't have that much muscle underneath the fat. So you're going to look like the person, how do I put it? You're going to potentially look like someone who is emaciated, who looks sickly. Okay? You're going to look unhealthy. You're going
to look like Blaha, suffering from sarcopenia. Yeah.
To look like someone who you would say they look like an anorexic. Because that's
Blaha, anorexic, yes.
What would happen if you just kept losing fat and you didn't gain any muscle? You have to.
He's just got a bunch of junk, how should I put it, weight. He's carrying a bunch of junk weight. He eats a bunch of weird food. He eats a lot of carbs. That's a lot of carbohydrate floating around in his body. There's a lot of weird weight that he's carrying around. It isn't contractile proteins, I can tell you that, or muscle fibers. He's carrying a lot of garbage weight because he eats tofu, pasta, and weird shit. Beans and coffee, whatever.
Fill some of that out. You need some muscle tone and some substance there. Okay. Otherwise,
he eats a shitload of sugar, fruits, vegetables, bread, whatever, tofu, this, that, pastas, and weird things. He drinks sugar all day. His whole diet is sugar, so it's a lot of phony weight he's carrying.
you just look like a skeleton. And even then, if you're losing body fat and you're not lifting weights, you're losing muscle the entire time. So that's why when people keep dieting down, they just look emaciated because they're losing muscle tissue also. So unless you give your body a reason to build tissue, it is not even going to keep what you have. So even understand, for those modest purposes, we are trying to gain muscle. All right, same thing when it comes to strength. Someone says, well, I want a big 1 rep max. All right, that's fine, but how much neural drive and technique do you think you're really going to get? I'll tell you what the research says. All that other stuff is about 10% of your strength. 90% of your strength for you as a person comes from the muscle that you gain. 90% of it.
And I'll agree with Blaha. He is not lying. He's telling you the truth, but a lot of people there can't fathom or can't understand that. See what I mean? They don't understand that. At least he does. He understands some of this.
You can always gain more muscle to bring your maxes up. Always.
Yep.
If you can gain the muscle. Now,
and that's a fact. And the weight will be even easier to lift. And so you'll be stronger at your natural strength will increase. So now you can increase more neural drive. So you can increase even further lifting heavier if you can increase your natural strength. Because now there's more places where the motor units can proliferate in if you've gained more muscle fibers. Now, I don't know about the girth. See what I mean? In these nuclei. That's what he's talking about. If you gain mass, particularly the motor units proliferate through these muscle fibers. Gaining more muscle fibers to me is more important than just getting the girth bigger on the myofibrillar. I don't know how much stronger you can get with girth. You definitely can. You get stronger for sure. Definitely. I would not say you don't. It just depends.
Well, how come different people have different size versus strength? Because different individuals, we're only talking about you as a person.
My name is Jared. I traded in my car.
Comparing different people have different limb lengths. They have different muscle fiber distributions. They have different insertion points. Their levers are going to be a little different. Understand? So it's a...
Yeah, I agree with him. It usually happens at birth. It happens at birth, and that's it. So yeah, and ectomorphs carry they're more type 1 muscle fibers than type 2, and then you have mesomorphs. They have more type 2 than you do as an ectomorph, and so do these endomorphs. So yeah,
it doesn't always work in a head-to-head comparison, but when you take the same person or you take two identical twins, it absolutely will work. Size always equals strength, or at least strength potential, because again, 90% of your strength on a max comes from the muscle that you gain. All that other stuff we do as power lifters counts for about 10%. Okay? And we're talking the primary mover. Someone can obviously have stabilizers that are not massive and still have a big lift. Okay, but the primary movers in that lift are going to have to be big if they have a big lift. That's just how it works. The same thing when it comes to sports performance. People are like, well, I'm training this whatever joint specific angle for whatever, for throwing or punching, and they're doing the joint specific. They're like, well, I want that performance. Well, how does it increase the performance? Like, do you really think the weightlifting is doing something to your nervous system there that you're not already getting from your sport? In other words, you're sparring for fighting, your practice, your training, your skill work. Same thing with field sports, everything else. Your skill work is what gives you the skills to play. That's where your motor unit learning is. If you're training a certain joint angle with a muscle in the gym, you are gaining the muscle fibers, you are thickening the muscle fibers, you're making them bigger that work that specific movement pattern at the joint angles that you're doing it at.
Okay, but gyms don't make the girth bigger in the muscle fibers. See what I mean? This is kind of ridiculous. I know people are going to say, well, I got a stimulus for growth. But muscles grow three ways. I just told you. There's only three ways that muscles grow. They either grow more myofibers. They grow in length, which is that repair and remodeling. See what I mean? The repair and the remodeling, and they grow in girth. So there's three ways. Now he says he's talking about girth, but you go, I'm gonna lift weights and I'm gonna stimulate growth, and then I'm just gonna go home and it's just gonna magically grow. No, it's not. Here's the thing. I'm gonna explain to you how that girth grows. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. You understand me? There is a stimulus. You came into the gym, you lifted a weight, you stimulated something. Let's say you're adapted, whatever. You're not getting any muscle damage, okay? But there's still some growth there in girth. But the girth is really hard to get, and it's not tangible. It's never going to really stick around. But anyways, let's just talk about this. Okay, so protein synthesis needs to exceed this breakdown for the girth of the muscle to get bigger. It's really simple. If it's not, it'll never get bigger. And so you can keep lifting in the gym forever, thinking that a weight is going to cause the girth to get bigger. But weights don't cause the girth to get bigger. Food does. But you just don't understand that. One guy told me, he says, I thought I don't need to eat for muscles to grow. I just have to lift weights and they'll grow. Well, they'll grow what? Magically? Out of breatharian diets? You crazy, man.
Okay? So your goal should be to maximize the muscle that is involved with that movement. And that gives you, just like we talked about the strength earlier, right? That gives you more force production, okay? It directly contributes to higher force production, any increase in muscle fiber thickness, okay?
Okay, I will say that. How does it increase the force production? I'll tell you how it does that. So the girth gets bigger on the muscle fiber, that force production. They all contain something called an androgen receptor. The androgen receptors bind, that's where the androgens bind to the androgen receptor, okay, giving you maximal force production. So when the girth of the muscle fiber increases, then the androgen receptor, it too increases in size. So it's like a black hole. The black hole gets bigger, it's able to suck in more stars. So it's able to suck in more hormone, giving you maximum force production. That's what it does. And not only that, but you can actually get more of these androgen receptors to bind to the myofibrillars. That's it. That's what really happens. That's how you increase maximal force production. That's why some people are never getting stronger, because they're just not eating enough, increasing the girth on the myofiber. Or sometimes it is an adaptation process. You may get more of these androgen receptors, but they may not get wider. They get wider when the myofibrillar increases in girth. So you can increase your maximum force production by increasing the girth of the myofiber when protein synthesis exceeds this breakdown. See what I mean? It's complicated. It's complex. Because people ask me, how do I get more androgen receptors for maximal force production to be a small, strong guy? It's really easy. You want to be a small, strong guy? Keep lifting heavy weights and you'll get an adaptation in androgen receptors. But you'll never maximize that force production. To maximize it, you need to increase the girth of the myofiber, or increase more myofibers, or increase the length in the myofibers. That's it, dude.
Muscle gains have a direct relationship to force production.
It does.
Okay?
And I will agree with him. He's right. He's correct. It does.
At the fiber level for each individual muscle fiber, and the muscle fibers are what's creating the force and contracting it. So, you see where we're going here? How about all the other health benefits? The reduced chances of cancer, where does it come from? Well, because of the improved insulin sensitivity, which comes from what? Building muscle. That's why lifting weights lowers cancer rates. We know.
I don't know if it lowers cancer rates. If you continuously eat and drink alcohol and do weird stuff and eat poisonous foods, then you can get cancer, yes. Even if you got the muscle, whatever you're doing there, I don't know. There's a possibility. You could die still, no matter what. Even if you have muscle, whatever the hell you're doing there.
Muscle tissue itself offers a degree of protection against a variety, most cancers.
Yeah, it does. I could say it's like a wall of protection. It definitely will help, will prevent. I wouldn't say you can't get cancer. Prevent cancer. There's a prevention there possibly. Depends on what you're eating. I don't know what you're doing there exactly. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I don't know for sure. Nobody really knows. You know what I mean? But yeah, he's gonna say something about diabetes, I think too. But yeah, if you're still eating sugar, I don't know, man. It's yeah, you're burning sugar, but come on.
All right, same thing with diabetes. Muscle tissue is good for diabetes. Fat tissue is bad for it.
Okay, that I will agree with him. It is bad for it, fat, and good to have muscle, definitely. But you shouldn't be eating all that sugar anyways.
The more muscle you gain and the less fat that you have, the less likely you are to develop type 2 diabetes.
But here's another problem. I'm going to explain something to you. Now that you just try to increase the girth in your muscle fibers and you increase it a lot, let's say some people eat like crazy, they work out and they increase the girth in the muscle fibers, they got some nuclei, I'll tell you something. If at some point you stop or something happens to you or whatever, I don't know. When those muscle fibers, the girth of them, because they're so maxed out, the girth, then when they start to shrink, they can turn into glucose, which can make you into a diabetic, which could turn your muscles can turn you into a diabetic now, because you increase too much girth on the myofiber. You didn't increase the myofibers or the length in the myofibers, you just increased girth. And then that girth starts to shrink. You can turn into a diabetic because it turns into glucose. That's something people don't realize.
And if your diet is not ideal, it dramatically reduces the chances because the muscle tissue improves your insulin sensitivity. Same thing with cardiovascular.
Yeah, it does in the moment. It does in the moment, maybe, from lifting, yes. See what I mean? But you shouldn't be eating all that sugar anyways, so you wouldn't need to do any of that. It's unnatural, Blaha.
Vascular risk. Okay? You always get a net positive health benefit from gaining muscle. The exception is when you bulked up really fat, but that's not muscle gain. You overbulked. Or
That's not a benefit, man. He says a benefit. There's no benefit. If you eat a natural diet, you don't need to worry about any of those things. He's saying a benefit because you're eating something unnatural and it's going to try to help you.
you use such copious amounts of illicit substances that those harmed your health while the muscle itself helped it. But it ends up being a net negative to your health.
No, steroids are toxic and they'll kill you.
Okay, but the muscle tissue itself always. So if your primary mechanism by which you're gaining muscle is lifting weights and eating protein, it always is positive to your health. All right? Hopefully we all understand this. And keep in mind, sarcopenia is the leading contributor to a lot of age-related deaths.
Sarcopenia is the decrease in satellite cells with age. There's a decrease in satellite cells. Thus, you're losing muscle mass. You're losing muscle mass. And you're suffering from something called sarcopenia. That's right. He's suffering from sarcopenia. I know it because I can see it in his body. And he takes TRT. Maybe the TRT is preserving Blaha. I can't say for sure. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or a scientist or anything. This is for entertainment purposes only. I don't know anything, man. I'm a human being. I have to go off my experiences.
Straight up sarcopenia, loss of muscle tissue. We should be focusing on gaining muscle. All right, guys, but that's really
So if you should be focused on gaining muscle, Blaha, then why aren't you focused on gaining muscle? Why aren't you conditioning yourself? Why are you so focused on steroids and drugs and all this kind of stuff? Why aren't you focused on the big three for gaining muscle? Remember, the three ways to gain muscle is muscle fibers, right? Elongating the muscle fibers through muscle fibers, again, repairing and modeling, and the girth. Now, I'm not so much focused too much. I am somewhat focused on girth, somewhat. I'm more focused on getting more muscle fibers and getting more of these fibers longer through the repair and the remodeling. I'm not really focused on the girth, but the girth will happen. It'll happen anyways, because in the repair and the remodeling and all that, whatever, it's going to happen in muscle damage. See what I mean? Like I said. But the only way to force that girth, to get just the girth of the muscle fibers, for muscle fibers to get bigger, protein synthesis needs to exceed this breakdown. So you open a little window for protein synthesis, you go to the gym, but there's a window for protein breakdown. So now you need to eat a shitload of food to build that muscle. That's what people don't understand. You still need to eat. A weight is not going to build muscles. If you keep going to the gym lifting there, that's why you're lifting limbo. So what do? You eat carbohydrates. I'm carbohydrate cycling. Carbohydrates all day. Pizza, pastas, whatever. Like Blaha, tofu. Drinking Coca-Colas all day. Eating bread all day. Man, all you people are carb fiends. And your muscles are fake. They're sarcoplasmic. They hypertrophy through sarcoplasmic. Why? Because ATP, the glycogen, is not regulated by the excretion of myostatin. It's not controlled by that, but muscles are controlled by myostatin, highly controlled. And so you people are never exceeding these things. You're exceeding it through artificial means like sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is based on glycogen, which is not regulated by any of these things, okay? By satellite cell or myostatin, follistatin. So I think that's what people, they don't really understand. They're so confused. They don't really understand bodybuilding. So there's so many people online, when I say, hey man, do you know what sarcoplasmic is? They're like, no, what is that? You get these young lifters. I go to these channels, they're young lifters. I write something in their comment section. They get angry with me. And then I ask them, I say, I'm actually educating you. Do you know what sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is? And the first thing they say is, no, what's that? And I go, that's what you're getting. That's what that is. Duh. Anyways, let's see what he
all
has
I
to say.
have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative.
It was somewhat informative, definitely. I would say this video was quite informative, yes. It's not a bad video Blaha pumped out for once in his lifetime. Anyway, so much to think about that, friends. Like, subscribe, support the channel, helps with the algorithm. I'll see you in the next one. It's good to know all the things in bodybuilding so you know what to train for and how to train for it to get what you want. So you don't waste your time there in lifting gym slave hell. Get it? I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, friends.